After World War II, some men were supposed to stand trial. Their laboratories had built weapons for the Third Reich. Their research had fueled destruction across Europe. Their loyalty had served a regime now condemned by the world. They were not supposed to walk free, but instead, they were given new identities, new contracts, new homes in the United States. This was not rumor. It was not conspiracy. It was policy, and it had a name: Operation Paperclip. Welcome to the Umbral. In 1945, the war ended in ruins. Germany collapsed. Cities burned. Evidence of atrocities surfaced in horrifying detail. The world demanded accountability. Nazi officials were arrested, trials were prepared, and scientists who had developed advanced weapon systems were expected to answer for their work. But something else was happening in the shadows, because the war may have ended, but a new conflict was already forming. The Soviet Union was advancing west. The United States was advancing east. And between them lay something more valuable than territory: knowledge. German rocket science had outpaced every other nation. The V-2 missile program had demonstrated technology that could reach beyond borders, beyond continents. Whoever controlled that knowledge would control the future of warfare. The question was no longer, should these scientists be punished? It became, who will recruit them first? American intelligence officers were dispatched into occupied Germany. Their mission was quiet: not to arrest, not to prosecute, but to identify. Lists were compiled, backgrounds examined, allegiances evaluated. And then came a decision that would redefine post-war morality. Instead of handing certain scientists over for prosecution, they would be brought to America, secretly. There was a problem. Many of these scientists had documented affiliations with the Nazi Party. Some had direct involvement with military programs tied to forced labor. Official policy forbade recruiting committed Nazis, so the records were adjusted, references removed, party memberships minimized, language softened, files were rewritten, paperclips were attached to certain folders, marking them for clearance. The name of the program came from that simple act: Operation Paperclip. They arrived quietly, through military transport, under restricted status. Their pasts were not publicized. Their names were not announced. Some were placed in research facilities, others in military labs. They were given housing, salaries, protection. Men once aligned with the regime the world had just defeated were now assets of the United States. To the public, the message was simple. America had defeated evil. Justice was being served. The Nuremberg trials were underway. But those trials did not include everyone. Some scientists who had once worked for the Nazi war machine were building rockets in American deserts. The moral clarity of victory was already fading. One name stands above the rest: Wernher von Braun, chief architect of the V-2 rocket, a technological visionary, a man who had once built weapons for Hitler and would later help build the Saturn V rocket for NASA. He became a public figure, a symbol of American innovation, but his earlier affiliations were rarely discussed. History remembers the moon landing. It speaks less about how the knowledge arrived. This was not only about rockets. It extended into aeronautics, chemical research, medical experimentation, military engineering. The Cold War demanded superiority, and superiority demanded expertise. Even if that expertise came at a cost, American officials faced a calculation. If these scientists were prosecuted, the Soviets might recruit them. If they were ignored, their knowledge would be lost. So they chose containment over condemnation, recruitment over retribution, control over justice. Public biographies were rewritten. Media coverage focused on achievements. The narrative shifted from former Nazi scientist to brilliant engineer. Past affiliations became footnotes, then whispers, then silence. Operation Paperclip helped accelerate American technological advancement. It contributed to missile programs, to space exploration, to Cold War dominance. But it also created a precedent that knowledge can outweigh morality, that expertise can excuse allegiance, that history can be edited when strategic necessity demands it. Not all records were released immediately. Some remained classified for decades. Documents surfaced slowly, revealing deeper involvement, broader recruitment, more extensive sanitization. The full scope was larger than originally admitted. Operation Paperclip was not chaos. It was structured, organized, authorized at high levels, which means this was not a mistake. It was a decision. Perhaps it was necessary. Perhaps it prevented a technological imbalance. Perhaps it was pragmatic. But then, what does justice mean when it can be suspended? What does accountability mean when it can be negotiated? And what does victory mean if it requires compromise? Operation Paperclip did not rewrite history. It redirected it. Men who once built weapons for one regime helped build rockets for another. The war ended. The uniforms changed. The laboratories remained. Because sometimes the most powerful asset in the world is not land, not weapons, not ideology, but knowledge. And knowledge is rarely left behind until the next Umbral.